Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Cricket here in Australia in crisis. Harsha, how real is this threat by the Indians, and could it just be bargaining power?
It could be, but I think the Indian board has been pushed into a corner because of the enormous outrage involved. Everyone is up in arms, and they have to be seen to be doing something. And hence the extremely strong reaction. There have been polls all over India. I think the Hindustan Times had a poll where 91% of the people said, come back home. So based on the fact that the country is up in arms, the board's got to be seen to be doing something.
A bulk of the problem is this stupid playing condition where the captains have got to dob in someone from the opposition if they use racial terms. Now that's what's caused Ponting to dob Harbhajan in. I think the reaction in Australia, part of the reaction in Australia is because they don't like people dobbing someone else in. So I think immediately that's seen as a problem for Ricky Ponting. But that shouldn't happen. That's not the captain's job. The captain's job is to look after his own team. It's the umpire's job to worry about all those other things. And once you start dobbing the opposition in, then they're going to start looking at you and there's a problem.
Yeah, and if you and I had been playing against each other and we'd been given that instruction, do we have to follow it? I don't think that I would have followed it necessarily.
Well, but hang on, you'd tell them that, Tony. You'd say to them, I'm not doing that.
Do you think that it's even half possible that Australia could sack Ricky Ponting? I mean, Peter Roebuck has written this extraordinarily strong piece in the Sydney Morning Herald. Is there an argument for definitely not?
Definitely not.
What, for being a successful captain you get sacked?
No, I don't think
he's carried himself in the eyes of people. I think that's the point Peter's trying to make. But I think that's a decision someone else has to take. I think the other issue is that Anil Kumble says, I had an agreement with Ricky Ponting before that we would play in the spirit of the game. And he says, I do not believe that picking a bum ball, which is one of the big issues on the Dhoni catch, where they believe that he picked the ball off the ground, and the Clark catch at slip, where the ball went off the face of the bat or the edge of the bat and he waited. And he said, look, as far as I know, that is not the spirit of the game and that violates the agreement that we had, so I don't want to have another.
All right. What about the whole problem cricket faces regarding this difficult phrase, the spirit of the game? Verbal abuse, sledging, mental disintegration, whatever you want to call it. Do we think that it truly is a part and parcel of the modern game, or can it be eradicated?
No, that's rubbish to say it's part and parcel of the game, and the ICC have got the trouble that they deserve. And I've always felt that the more you allow to be said on the field, the more likely that something personal will be said. And if something personal is said at the wrong time to the wrong person, bang, you'll have fisticuffs on the field. I mean, Tony talked about the time when we played. You go back to that time, two umpires ran the game. They were in control of the game out in the middle. And all that's happened since those days is they've taken more and more power away from the umpires. Now the players, really, they don't know who's running the game out there.
And that's out. Big edge. Well, there's a big noise there. And I reckon Steve Button's the only one at the ground who hasn't heard it.
And I think the time has probably come for the Pontings and the Kumbles of this world and other captains around the world perhaps to rethink the question of walking, the question of trying to help the umpires a bit. I mean, I know this is not everyone's cup of tea, but I think we're stuck in the past a little bit on this issue. I mean, technology is moving forward fast. The last thing I want is a cup of tea and a tea party out there. This is a tough game, and there's going to be words.
I fear, though, Tony, that we're getting there. I mean, all three of you have played at the highest level. I'm sort of the common man's representative here. And I think people are saying, do you need to abuse at all? Have the cricketers now forfeited the right to have a little go at each other? And therefore, because now definitions of what constitutes abuse, what is racial, are now, now you're now saying Brad Hogg abused Anil Kumble. We've opened a Pandora's box. And now I think we've reached a stage where I think the only solution is just no chatter on the cricket field.
Ranatunga said, switch the mics up. Don't switch them down. And he said that a long time ago, when the Englishman had a real go at him, personally.
Verbal exchanges with Andrew Symonds and Ponting, plus a closed-mouth reprimand from umpire Mark Benson, triggered by Harbhajan allegedly calling Symonds a monkey.
Most usually, racism is seen as white on black or coloured. This is a reversal of that situation, if it be true. In India, how serious is the word monkey?
I think the basis of it all was there an agreement not to use that word? That changes things. If there's an agreement not to use that word, then there is a problem.
It's not acceptable to call a black guy a monkey, and but I've got to say too that a lot does depend on what was said before that happened. I mean, you know.
What you mean in terms of someone, the level that he may have been wound up?
Absolutely.
And do you think that it's within the Australians to wind someone up to the point at which they snap?
Well, as I said before, the more you allow to be said on the field, the more likely that something personal will be said. You get something personal said to you at the wrong time, the wrong moment, there's all sorts of flare-ups can happen.
How much has the umpiring influenced what's gone on here?
It started it. The fire was lit by the umpiring, and it was fueled by the racism charge.
I've always said that animosity and anger on the cricket field is caused predominantly by poor officiating, either bad laws and playing conditions or bad decision making.
Did it carry? Yes, it did. Michael Clark's got him.
It's the laws of the game that run the game out in the middle, and two blokes used to be in charge of those laws of the game. I mean, and let's get back to the crux of the matter. You cannot solve the problem with the ICC constituted the way it is at the moment, because it's a power-broking political body. It doesn't administer in the best interests of the game of cricket.
My fear, Mark, is that Australia is trying to get some moral high ground. And the way cricket has traditionally been played, Australia's cricketers are not equipped to play it differently. When they were playing in Chappelle's time and they said, we're playing our game, the umpires are doing their job, everything was clear-cut. Now they're saying, we will uphold the spirit and trust me. And I think the words trust me are becoming a little difficult for them to carry off.
I think Gilchrist's ahead of his time. Gilchrist, and I think he's ahead of his
but
time.
But he appeals when he knows the batsman's not out.
But that's fine by me, because he's doing that on part of the team. As far as I'm concerned, the issue really is that players are making it more difficult for umpires.
Is it fanciful to suggest that these two teams, led by these two captains, the two powerhouses of the world, could come together and create a better game and influence the rest of the world, Harsha?
I think culturally the two countries have moved apart a little bit as well. India's changed in the last 5 or 6 years. Young India is saying, hang on, we are not these good, simple, docile fellows who went and lost. So we are not going to stand up for anything. And the younger generation is saying, we are as good. They are far more aggressive. And you can see that within the side as well. So I think it'll be difficult to arrive at a truce.
Yes, gone! It's over! Clark's done damage. Australia win. What a performance!
Look at this vision. Is this out? Does Ricky have a right to be upset here that this wasn't come out? Looks like it's come off the glove initially.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, it's one of those things that I think that obviously Ricky's claimed the catch. He thinks that it did come off the glove. The video replays, Laurie, conclusive? I say not 100%.
Well,
I think
that one,
certainly
Jimmy,
Symonds and that.
Yeah, that one, Jimmy.
There you go.
Law 32. I had a look just before. If the ball touches the ground, even though it's in the hand, it can't be given out. Now, that's the judgment you have to make. Now, I don't think for sure you can say the ball's hit the ground there. You can certainly say Ponting got his hand on it, but did it hit the ground? And that's probably why he went a little bit off at the press conference. But having said that, that's another issue again, his performance at the presser. But clearly, he's allowed to appeal for that. If he looks at it on video later and thinks it's hit the ground, then that's another thing altogether.
Yep. But is it conclusive it came off the glove anyway? Did it come off the glove? I mean, I can't tell from those angles there whether it absolutely conclusively came off the glove. Isn't it benefit of the doubt to the batsman?
Well, it is. And, Jimmy, the issue there, I think, is whether he actually caught the ball, not so much whether it came off the glove. The umpires ruled it not out because he didn't think it hit the batsman's glove. Whether he caught it or not is another thing, and that's, you know, an interesting one. But, you know, I think the right decision was made there, fortunately.
Now, that catch sparked just a little bit of controversy when an Indian journalist questioned Ponting's integrity at the post-match media conference.
I claimed a catch after Grant. Sorry, I think you've got something wrong there. There's no way I grounded that ball. And I think if you're actually questioning my integrity in the game, then you shouldn't be standing here.
Ricky Ponting, in the first innings he allowed Travis to continue, and in the second innings, were you sure about having played that catch?
Well, have I not, with what I did in the first innings, doesn't that explain the way I play the game?
Is why I'm asking you, Ricky.
Okay, so I'm saying that I'm 100% sure that I would have caught that catch of Dhoni today. As it turned out, it was given not out anyway. Am I right or wrong? Am I right or wrong? So you've got.
I have my doubt, and that's why I'm asking.
Okay, fine.
Laurie, pretty amazing scenes for a media conference.
Yeah, the Indian journalists really wearing their heart on their sleeve there, and they were pretty disappointed as well, I suppose. But the thing about it is, you should be allowed to ask a question, and the Indian journalist did. Ricky was a little bit tense with his reply, and I mean, Jim, we've all been to press conferences over the years where we've had to ask the hard question, and you know, Mick Moldhouse and AFL coaches aren't the easiest blokes to deal with either. So yeah, a tricky one that.
Jimmy, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, sorry, Luke. It was. It's interesting, isn't it? The emotion was running so high. Ricky was charged. I mean, the emotion of winning such a dramatic test match in those circumstances. And then that Indian press corps, yeah, it was a fair and reasonable question. And, Ricky, who's, I think, a fantastic leader, a great captain, and has really matured and mellowed, I think, as the years have gone on. Yeah, he dropped his guard there, and I think that he should have just remained cool and calm and composed. And I know that he was being... it was a pretty inflammatory sort of proposition, but it was, again, a fair question. It was a tough question, but it had to be asked. And I thought he didn't do himself any favours there, Rick. And I think Rick, if he looked back at that, would probably agree that, you know, maybe he could have handled it a bit differently.
Maybe the end of a tough fifth day there, Ricky Ponting could have just handled that a little bit better. What happened next, though, was even more bizarre. One of the senior Indian journalists complained to the Indian team management about the treatment he'd been receiving from the Australian captain. Let's have a look, then I want both of your reactions.
So I feel as a senior member of the Indian press that we were humiliated like anything, and in due course, since we will be having a dialogue with the Australian Cricket Australia or their counterpart, please make this happen. That this is a press conference and the media persons should be allowed to ask questions. That is very, very humiliating, and please note it down. Thank you.
The guy had the gumption to even ask a senior scribe to get out of this room to ask a question. So that's simply...
Let's get these questions out of the way and deal with this later. Okay, hang on. It's not a issue.
You might be small issue for you, Peter. It's not for us.
It's a very serious issue. It's not.
You can go walk out.
And we will definitely convey your sentiments. We'll do that.
Now, I guess Ricky Ponting did go a little bit over the top. Jim, was that over the top?
Yeah, the journalist in that respect just crossed a big line. He started challenging and started venting his own personal opinion in a press conference. Of course he crossed the line. I think it was, yes, Ricky should have answered the question more appropriately, but the way that press journalist carried on was just unacceptable. So, and then all of a sudden it turns into a circus. There's Anil Kumble. He's just been beaten by 122 runs, watched his tail end just collapse basically, with Michael Clarke, and he's sitting there trying to, thinking to himself, this is a media conference where I actually should be the star of the show and answering the questions as captain of the Indian side. It turned into an absolute circus and a rabble.
That was a circus, wasn't it, Laurie?
Yeah, I think the cultural differences between how Indian journalists run things and Australian journalists run things are a bit different. I mean, an Australian journalist would ask that question, maybe cop that bit of a spray back from Ricky and just walk on, but the Indians didn't enjoy it, and it's a pity.
It was a pity.
And can I just say sure, quickly Jim. There, the Indian journalists are terrific to work with. I've covered the World Cup in 1996. I've been on an Indian tour. They are fantastic. They're passionate and they know the game. They're educated. And that gentleman was obviously upset with Ricky's reaction, but that's not gives him any justification to go to go down that avenue of venting his spleen. So again, I'm not having a crack at Indians or Indian journalists. They are very, very educated, very passionate, and they love the game, and we all love that. That's terrific.
Indeed.
Consecutive test victory for Australia and achieved in dramatic fashion. The first task on day 5 against India, rule out any possibility of defeat. Michael Hussey's 145 not out, his 8th test century saw to that.
Congratulations, Mr. Cricket.
Andrew Symonds offered able assistance with 61, including 17 off one RP Singh over. Australia reached 401 for 7 before Ricky Ponting called them in, giving his bowlers 72 overs to win the match. They were quickly to work.
Oh yes, what a strike!
Wasim Jaffer out for a duck. Australia received a touch of fortune along the way too. Rahul Dravid given out caught behind off man of the match Symonds when he was well placed on 38. And it took a controversial decision to get rid of Ganguly too. Michael Clarke claimed the catch. Ganguly wasn't convinced it carried. Even so, India looked to have done enough for the draw. But in the penultimate over, Clarke took centre stage again. He had Harbhajan Singh caught by Hussey, then trapped RP Singh, LBW. One more wicket would do it.
It's gone! It's over! Clark's done the damage! Australia win!
3 wickets in an over to win the match. Now the celebrations could begin. Ricky Ponting's team had equalled a record set by Steve Waugh's side 7 years ago. A 16-game streak stretching back to 2005. They'll hope to make it 17 in a row when the final test begins on January the 16th.
You know, we were the only ones that could win the game. When I declared, I thought we were the only team that could win the game, which is what I wanted today. And to have to sort of try and survive and bat out 70 overs on that wicket was going to be hard work, and that's the way it proved.
There was ever a stage where you thought, we're not going to win this game, it's going to be a draw?
Oh, with probably 10 overs to go, the game was sort of slipping away, but even then I knew that we only needed 1 wicket, and new batsmen coming in were going to be under all sorts of pressure. The job that Andrew Symonds did with the ball today was amazing for us, and we tried every option towards the end there. I brought all the quicks back, and they were probably a little bit less effective than the spinners were, so last roll of the dice was to give Pup a crack, and he's got 3 wickets in a couple of overs.
More wickets and runs this game, Tub, but yeah, look, I've been asking Punt all day to get a bowl. He finally gave him the chance, so obviously, again, a lot of ask, but I'm certainly taking it.
3 wickets in the last, well, not that it turned out to be the last over, but did you think when you came on that you could still win the game?
Honestly, not a chance in hell, and I think that's why Punter threw me the ball.
That was a real classical old-school test match. It went the distance. Both teams made big scores, and it was a sort of a ground-out affair that went right down the last few minutes.
Yeah, 220-odd runs for you, and wickets and time spent in the field. What's worse, your mind or your body? How are you holding up?
I felt pretty bad after I dropped that catch. That's the worst feeling in cricket. But I think at the moment I'm just full of adrenaline, but I'll collapse in a heap probably a bit later on tonight.
On day 3 of the second test in Sydney, Australia's players accused Singh of calling Symonds a monkey. Neither of the 2 umpires heard the alleged remark.
The incident involving Indian off-spinner Harbhajan Singh and Australian all-rounder Andrew Symonds, and the subsequent hearing by the ICC match referee and his conclusions are, to say the least, distressing. The Indian board does not accept the findings of the match referee and has decided to challenge the unfair decision to suspend Harbhajan Singh as it deems it patently unfair. The board will appeal to the ICC to review the decision of the match referee and suspend its operations till the appeal is disposed of. The Indian board realizes the game of cricket is paramount, but so too is the honour of the Indian team and, for that matter, every Indian.
They're entitled to do whatever they think is appropriate at the time, but for me that would be a little bit extreme, I must admit. As I said, from what I and the rest of the Australian players can take from the first 2 tests, there's a lot of fun and a lot of enjoyment. Sure that there's been something else in the background here that's happened in this last test that's probably put a sour taste in the Indian couple of the Indian teams' mouths, but I think it's important for all of us to look past that and realise that both India and Australia have got and have had tremendous relations through 100 years of Test cricket, and you'd like to think that one little incident like this wouldn't bring undone all the great work that's been done.
The slur of racial abuse on Harbhajan Singh, that has assumed larger proportions in this country, because we have been an anti-racist country, and without any concrete evidence, without any intent, without the 2 umpires hearing anything from Harbhajan Singh, if he is hanged, that is what India is not willing to accept. The racial abuse slur, that is what they want to be set aside, and they believe that they are the aggrieved party over here. And for the ICC, the message from the Indian public is loud and clear. To know what is right and not to do it is the worst cowardice. What has tarnished the image of the game is bad umpiring. You should have the same yardstick for other people as well. 7 decisions go against the Indian team. Just 1 decision goes against the Australian team, and that too after Ponting is given a reprieve when he's out on 8, and the whole world saw it. The whole world saw it, the circumstantial evidence. that goes on to prove that they were not playing with 11, they were playing with 14. I can understand the umpires making a mistake, but when the third umpire, who's watching slow motion replays, makes a mistake, then you got to say that he wouldn't find his bums with both hands. And that is inexplicable. India's not prepared to accept that. Why should 7 decisions go against India? Why should Rahul Dravid be given out when the third umpire could have easily been consulted and he could have batted on from there on? And if the game has been brought to disrepute, I'm sorry to say, it's because of the umpires. The umpires are the villain. They should be shown the door. Why should India suffer for that? That's what every Indian is saying, and with a lot of pride.
There are matters that have arisen out of the match that are relevant to the ICC Code of Conduct. Obviously, the matter in relation to Harbhajan Singh was heard last night and is now pending an appeal, and also I understand there may be a report against the Australian player Brad Hogg. So the ICC Code of Conduct specifically says, or puts me in the position of not being able to comment on that at this time. I do note comments from Anil Kumble after the match in respect to the spirit of the game and how the game was played, and I think that it is only appropriate in that circumstance for Ricky Ponting and Anil Kumble to get together and to talk about exactly what differences of opinion there may be in that regard.